The Committee of Perth are working on plans to redesign the centre of Fremantle, a city known as a hotspot for tourists and a centre for culture. But is this port city still what it used to be? To see if I could find out more about how these plans would change the city, I took a trip down to the town hall.
It's a city that's got a lot of history and a lot of heritage. It's a port city, but one that's had a long history of being a place of commerce and industry. The talk of the state government either selling or a long-term lease of about 50 years of the port has the potential to have quite a big impact on Fremantle.
What I'd hate to see is a private operator come in and say, oh, I'm going to play the safety first rule and I'm going to block the port off to the public, and it would dislocate the city. And I think if it's handled properly by the government, it won't impact the economy at all.
What you're going to see over the next 5 years in Fremantle will be quite a dramatic change. You're going to see a lot more developments, a lot more apartment developments especially, because our aim is to quadruple the amount of people that live in the centre of Fremantle. You'll also see a lot of new office developments, but also a lot of changes at the street level, where we start to activate our streets, close off parts of the street so there's more pedestrian and they're more walking and cycling friendly. I
think we've got everything right, groundwork. Biggest challenge is probably more macro. So by that I mean things like the fact that government doesn't have any money. The world economies, many countries around the world are in recession.
I think it's a mix. We're seeing some businesses doing really well in many ways, but we're also seeing some businesses really struggle.
I decided to explore the city centre to see if I could find out for myself how business owners were doing.
Business in Fremantle at the moment is it's pretty bad. We don't have the people coming through. We don't have the tourism coming through like it used to.
Business has been on a very heavy decline over the last few years in Fremantle. I think it's the economy in general, but Fremantle has slowed down a lot.
The last 5 years, it's just been really, really hard.
A lot of shops that are suffering at the moment due to the lack of people that are actually coming into Fremantle.
Fremantle is dying in a way where, even with the tourism coming through saying that this is one of the worst ports that they've pulled into.
The City of Fremantle has been trying to do a lot with festivals and stuff like that, but that brings in people on the weekends only. It doesn't really do much for during the week trading.
We really want to make sure that over the longer term, local businesses are much more sustainable in Fremantle. It's hard to sustain a business when you're busy 3 or 4 days a week, but quiet the other 3 or 4 days. So what we're doing is actually making sure that by having more people living and working and visiting Fremantle, that it's good for businesses.
The biggest problem I find is the parking.
Better free parking, so that people will come in and shop.
The parking situation is definitely a negative for Fremantle.
Heavily subsidise a cat bus system that runs around and just allows people to travel freely through Fremantle. We want to make sure that people can get in by bikes, by cars, make sure there's enough parking. So I guess our job as a local government is to make sure the planning regime is in place to allow developments to occur when they need to, where they need to and when they need to, and also to make sure that the visitors are well catered for so that the retail businesses in the city can prosper.
They'll rather go to the shopping centres, and there's not enough to attract people in Fremantle. There's really nothing apart from a couple boutiques.
There's not a lot of variety anymore in Fremantle. With Myers leaving, that's also reduced the amount of people that come through.
The CBD needs to have people from all over the place come in, and more than just on Fridays and Saturday nights. It needs to be 7 days a week. So if that's about a marketing, a branding campaign, a marketing campaign, we need to look at it. The Chamber of Commerce thinks that we need to be much bolder about building the brand of Fremantle outside of the borders of Fremantle.
But what we need to do is really help those businesses that we want to keep going into the longer term, help them through this transition period as we bring Fremantle back to life.
If we can just get 1 or 2 major developments happening, and there are some fairly big developments happening, but particularly this King Square development, at a $250 odd million for the total development of the King Square project, that will deliver a message to the rest of the market.
If we live through those, then the centre of Fremantle will be a much more vibrant place to be. Our task now is to make it through the next 4 years.
This has been Jack Middleton, reporting for Undercurrent.